Narcissistic mothers exhibit a range of harmful and destructive behaviors that are often masked under the guise of love or care, but beneath this facade lies a manipulative and damaging pattern of emotional abuse. Today, we'll explore the toxic traits of narcissistic mothers and how they manifest in their treatment of their children. Before we begin, if you're new to this channel, welcome. Please consider subscribing and don't forget to hit the notification bell. Let's now dive into the insidious behaviors that make narcissistic mothers so destructive and how these traits poison the lives of their children. One of the most harmful dynamics in the relationship between a narcissistic mother and her child is emotional incest, also known as covert incest. This occurs when a mother relies on her child to meet her emotional needs, treating them as a surrogate partner or confidant. Instead of allowing the child to grow and develop healthy boundaries, the mother manipulates them into filling the emotional void in her life. The child is thrust into an adult role they are not emotionally equipped to handle, becoming responsible for their mother's well-being. This relationship robs the child of the chance to form their own identity, trapping them in a toxic cycle of emotional dependency. As the child grows, the enmeshment only deepens. The mother often uses guilt to reinforce this unhealthy bond, making the child feel that their love and attention are the only things keeping her stable. Over time, this emotional incest becomes normalized, and the child may have difficulty forming their own intimate relationships, as the deep emotional bond with their mother leaves little room for others. The child remains emotionally stunted, struggling to separate their own needs from their mother's expectations, leading to a lifelong struggle with codependency and unhealthy attachments. Narcissistic mothers often exploit their children's deepest insecurities, particularly the fear of abandonment. By creating an environment where love and approval are conditional, they instill a profound sense of anxiety in their children. The slightest misstep can result in the mother withdrawing affection or threatening to cut ties, leaving the child in a perpetual state of fear. This fear is a powerful tool for control, making the child desperate to meet the mother's demands. Whether through subtle threats or outright statements, the narcissistic mother reinforces the idea that the child is only valuable as long as they serve her needs. This constant manipulation places the child in a state of hypervigilance, always anxious about how their actions will affect their mother's mood or perception of them. This deep-seated fear of abandonment prevents the child from asserting any form of independence or setting healthy boundaries. The child may internalize the belief that love is always conditional, leading to future relationships marked by insecurity, anxiety, and the need to please others at the expense of their own happiness. The emotional scars left by this type of manipulation can take years to heal, leaving the child feeling unworthy of love unless they constantly strive to meet impossible standards. Narcissistic mothers frequently impose impossibly high standards on their children, using these expectations as a form of control. The child is expected to excel in every area of life: academics, appearance, behavior, essentially becoming a perfect reflection of the mother's idealized self-image. However, these expectations are not attainable, setting the child up for inevitable failure. When the child inevitably falls short of these unrealistic goals, they are met with criticism, disappointment, or emotional withdrawal. This reinforces the toxic belief that they are never good enough and must constantly strive for approval that will never come. Over time, this relentless pursuit of perfection takes a heavy toll on the child's mental health. The child may develop anxiety, depression, or feelings of worthlessness as they grapple with the crushing weight of their mother's expectations. The fear of failure becomes paralyzing, leading the child to avoid taking risks or pursuing their true passions. Even in adulthood, the echoes of these unattainable standards remain, making it difficult for the child to celebrate their achievements or accept their imperfections. The legacy of perfectionism often continues, impacting their career, relationships, and overall sense of self-worth. Ironically, even success can be a source of punishment for a child of a narcissistic mother. Any achievement that the child attains, whether academic, personal, or professional, can be seen as a threat to the mother's sense of control. Instead of celebrating their child's success, the narcissistic mother might downplay or dismiss it entirely, often claiming that the success is not impressive or attributing it to external factors like luck. In some cases, the mother may even actively sabotage her child's achievements by creating obstacles or withholding support. This punishment for success sends a confusing message to the child. No matter what they do, they will never be truly valued or appreciated. This creates a paradox where the child is afraid of succeeding, knowing that their accomplishments will not only go unappreciated but may even invite hostility or resentment. The child learns to hide or downplay their achievements to avoid triggering their mother's negative reactions. This can lead to self-sabotaging behaviors, where the child deliberately undermines their own success out of fear of provoking their mother's anger. In the long term, this dynamic teaches the child that success is dangerous, leading them to settle for mediocrity or avoid pursuing their true potential altogether. Another hallmark of narcissistic mothers is the tactic of triangulating siblings against one another. By playing favorites and pitting siblings against each other, the narcissistic mother creates an environment of rivalry and competition. She might bestow undue praise and attention on one child, the so-called golden child, while scapegoating or neglecting the others. This favoritism shifts unpredictably, leaving all the children in a constant state of insecurity, unsure of their standing with their mother. The rivalry that results from this manipulation prevents the siblings from forming close, supportive relationships with each other, keeping them isolated and dependent on their mother for validation. This dynamic of favoritism and scapegoating creates a toxic atmosphere within the family, where love and approval are commodities to be fought over. Siblings who should naturally support one another are instead manipulated into competing for their mother's affection. The golden child may feel intense pressure to maintain their favored status, while the scapegoat child may grow resentful and disconnected. These wounds often extend far beyond childhood, as sibling relationships remain fractured, and the effects of the mother's manipulation continue to shape how they interact with others throughout their lives. Narcissistic mothers are notorious for invalidating their children's emotions, often mocking or belittling their emotional pain. Instead of offering comfort or empathy, they may respond to their child's distress with sarcasm, ridicule, or dismissive comments like, "You're too sensitive," or "Stop being dramatic." This kind of emotional invalidation teaches the child that their feelings are not important or, worse, that they are a source of amusement. Over time, the child learns to suppress their emotions, internalizing the belief that vulnerability is weakness. This emotional repression can have long-lasting psychological effects, making it difficult for the child to form healthy, emotionally supportive relationships in adulthood. This mocking of emotional pain sends a clear message: the child's suffering is trivial. The child learns to hide their pain, masking their true feelings to avoid further humiliation. This emotional suppression can lead to severe emotional disconnection, as the child struggles to identify and express their emotions, even in adulthood. The child might also develop feelings of shame, believing that their natural responses to difficult situations are wrong or excessive. This self-doubt can severely impact their self-esteem and the way they navigate emotional intimacy in future relationships. A narcissistic mother often denies her child the emotional support they need, particularly during times of vulnerability. Whether through neglect or emotional withdrawal, the narcissistic mother sends a clear message that her own needs always take precedence over those of her child. When the child seeks comfort or validation, they may be met with indifference or scorn. Statements like, "You're overreacting," or "Get over it," trivialize the child's feelings, reinforcing the belief that they are not worthy of care. This emotional neglect fosters a deep sense of unworthiness in the child, making them more susceptible to anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. Over time, the absence of emotional support from a narcissistic mother conditions the child to expect little from others in terms of care and empathy. The child may grow up believing that they must handle all emotional challenges alone, leading to isolation and difficulty reaching out for help when needed. This lack of emotional nurturing stunts their emotional development, often leaving them ill-equipped to manage their emotions healthily. It also creates a pattern of emotional self-reliance, where the child becomes detached from their needs and struggles to connect with others on a deeper level, fearing that vulnerability will once again be met with rejection or apathy. Narcissistic mothers often exaggerate their children's flaws to maintain control over them. By magnifying even the smallest imperfections, they keep their child in a constant state of self-doubt and insecurity. This tactic is designed to undermine the child's confidence, ensuring that they remain emotionally dependent on the mother's approval. Criticism is often inconsistent. One moment, the child might be blamed for trivial mistakes, while the next, their genuine accomplishments are dismissed or ignored. Over time, the child internalizes the belief that they are inherently flawed, leading to a distorted sense of self and a perpetual need for validation. The constant barrage of exaggerated criticism serves as a means to keep the child emotionally off balance. The child, unsure of their own worth, becomes hyper-aware of every perceived flaw and misstep, often feeling unworthy of love or success. This distorted self-image can have far-reaching consequences, causing the child to develop perfectionism, anxiety, and even self-loathing. In adult relationships, this deeply ingrained self-criticism may lead them to seek partners who are similarly critical or abusive, perpetuating the cycle of emotional abuse and insecurity that was instilled in them from childhood. Any attempt by the child to assert their individuality is seen as a direct threat to the narcissistic mother's control. Whether through independent thinking, developing personal interests, or forming outside relationships, the child's expression of autonomy is often met with disdain or sabotage. The mother may ridicule the child's interests, devalue their opinions, or actively discourage friendships and relationships that she does not approve of. The message is clear. The child is only acceptable as an extension of the mother's identity, not as an independent being with their own desires, thoughts, and emotions. This constant suppression of individuality teaches the child that they must conform to the mother's expectations or risk being emotionally abandoned. As a result, the child may struggle to establish their own identity, fearing that any deviation from their mother's ideals will lead to rejection. In adulthood, this can manifest as a lack of self-confidence, difficulty making decisions, or even the inability to pursue their own passions without feeling guilt or shame. The suppression of individuality leaves the child feeling incomplete, as they never had the opportunity to explore who they truly are outside of their mother's control. For a narcissistic mother, her children are often seen as extensions of herself, rather than as individuals with their own identities. This can manifest in various ways, from dictating the child's interests and choices to imposing her own unfulfilled dreams onto them. Whether through subtle manipulation or outright coercion, the mother steers the child's life according to her desires, treating their accomplishments and failures as her own. The child is expected to reflect the mother's idealized self-image, and any deviation from this is met with disappointment or anger. This strips the child of their sense of self and reinforces the belief that their worth is tied solely to their ability to meet their mother's expectations. As the child grows older, they may struggle with an overwhelming sense of duty to continue living according to their mother's wishes, even if it means sacrificing their own happiness and fulfillment. This deep-rooted need for approval can stifle personal growth, making it difficult for the child to pursue their own aspirations or form authentic relationships. The feeling of being an extension of their mother's identity can lead to confusion about who they truly are, often resulting in an identity crisis later in life. The child may find it challenging to disentangle their own desires from the expectations imposed on them, leading to feelings of emptiness and a lack of direction. Understanding the toxic behaviors of a narcissistic mother is the first step in breaking free from their control. By recognizing these harmful dynamics, you can begin to reclaim your sense of self and set healthy boundaries. Remember, healing from narcissistic abuse takes time, but it is possible. Surround yourself with supportive people, seek professional help if needed, and most importantly, give yourself permission to prioritize your own needs and well-being. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, you are not alone in your journey toward healing. Stay blessed and irresistible.